My name is Deb Quentel, and I'm the Director of Curriculum Development here for CALI, and we're going to be talking about branching today. So let me get us going. First of all, a little bit of information about our webinars. They're all archived at Blip TV, and they're soon to be added actually to WorldCat, which is pretty exciting. There's the URL, so you can go and watch your favorite episodes. I'm on the far left. My colleague Austin Greathouse, who may be listed as John Mayer. I'm not sure what you folks are seeing. And John is our executive director. John is not joining us today, but Austin is here, and he's going to be handling questions and things like that. Austin, do you want to have them raise their hand at this time?
Yeah, just go ahead, and there should be a little hand-raising button there. Yeah, I see you guys have found it. So if you have a question, just do that, and I can unmute you, and I'll let Deb know, and you can ask the question to Deb.
Great, and I would invite you to ask questions at any time. This is part 4, and this is just an overview here showing you what we've covered so far. So if it seems like I'm jumping into the middle, it kind of is as part 4. We're going to talk about branching, a couple things to consider today, why one would want to branch in a lesson, different styles of branching, and then finally we're going to talk about how you can actually create branches in lessons. And keep in mind, you don't have to author a brand new CALI lesson to be using branching. You could take an existing lesson and modify it and perhaps add a branch. So there are a number of reasons that people might want to use branching in a lesson. The big ones are that it avoids a linear, unrelated question, just one repetitive question after another, almost a flashcard in a internet web-based format. Another reason is it creates student-centric learning. The student's second question or the response that they get to a particular choice they've made seems very exacting to them, and so it makes them think that you really care as a teacher and that the material is particularly geared toward their learning problem and their confusion. There are a bunch of different ways you can do branching. You can review extra material, you can challenge. And one of the nifty things is it allows you to create a mini-Socratic dialogue with a student. Very seldom do you just take a question and answer in class and let it go, but you might delve deeper, and that you can do with branching in our lessons. There are a couple different styles or models, and when I was putting this presentation together, I realized that I was spending a lot of time trying to find the absolute best example of any branching in the lesson. And there are really just some models here or styles that let me go through, and then we'll look at a couple lessons, because there's so many CALI lessons that use branching that it's hard to pick a perfect example. The basic building blocks for questions are just linear questions, and we call this Nintendoing, when one question just leads to the next, to the next, to the next, that sort of thing. And you see that in a lot, that question format in a lot of question writing tools that are out there on the internet. And CALI Author, of course, gives you something special. It gives you the ability to jump around and branch more. So we call this method of authoring questions expert mode. Let's suppose a student gets a threshold question correct. You might want to reward them by jumping them down a few questions into the sequence rather than stepping them one analytical step at a time. Also, if a student gets a wrong answer, you might want to take them aside through questions and give them some novice questions or remedial questions to get them back on track with everyone else. Keep in mind that if you've got a novice branch in your lesson, the first time through the lesson, the student might hit the novice branch and take the band of brown questions down the right. The second time through the lesson, they're going to progress in a more linear fashion through the lesson, so it makes the lesson a little bit different each time a student works through it, which is kind of exciting. You can also have what we call stick to your response, which is you challenge the question, or the student's question rather, you challenge their response. Are you sure that's what you want to answer? Did you consider this? You toss in another question. This is really a great example of a mini-Socratic dialogue. So you'll see this type of branching question inside CALI lessons. And then finally, you can get fancy and start combining all sorts. You can combine a remedial branch or a novice branch if a student asks the wrong question, or rather you've asked the right question, they give the wrong answer. Or you can fill out their knowledge. If they've answered with the right answer, you might want to give them a little bit deeper analysis. Again, it makes the lesson very student-centric in learning, and it also gives the student the impression that they're being personally taught by you as the author. So, as I said, I've taken a couple of these different lessons, and just to show you some of the branching, this is a fair use and parody lesson by Professor Mary LaFrance, and in the middle of Mary's lesson, she asks the top question here, which deals with a question as to what's the characterization of the music video, what's a fair use defense, and you see all three choices, A, B, or C, progress to the next question here. And then you see this question right here, or hopefully you see my mouse moving. Depending on whether you answer A, B, or C, you take a different route in the lesson. If you select C, you answer the question and then you go back to the original question. If you answer the question B, which is also B and C are both wrong choices, you're given a response, and then you're allowed to, if you get the correct response for B, then you go over to what would have been the correct response for the original question. Otherwise, you can move over to the choice that was for C. You can do some rather complicated branching. And then another lesson that in the area of property law by Joe Groman, Professor Joe Groman, is relations between co-tenants. And here, depending on your answer, you have to review some material, some background material. And I include these just because if you want to go and find some examples, there are a number of places on the CALI website lessons you can look at. Lessons in the property area by Joe Groman, Wilson Fryermuth, Wilson Fryermuth, Jim Smith, Joe Groman. In the copyright area, Vince Chiappetta, Mary LaFrance, David Welkowitz. Those are some ones that we use a lot of branching. And then this is a lesson that I got just a couple days ago. It's in draft format. And Professor Jennifer Martin is writing a lesson on CISG and contract law. And this was pretty complicated here. And the pages link from this yellow highlighted area up in the upper right-hand corner. And what she does is create internal menus and hyperlinks. And then each hyperlink moves to a section of the material that I've color-coded here on the left. The purple arrow comes from this yellow box, and the purple arrow goes to all these purple pages. The blue arrow comes from the yellow box. It goes to all these blue boxes. The green is separated into two segments here, but they're all related. And finally, everybody gets down to this yellow page, which takes them back up to the original page. So depending on the student's decision of what they want to cover first and choices they make in this upper yellow box, they're moved all around the lesson. So it's kind of using branching pages as an internal menu structure. So how do you write branching questions? Well, I've worked with a number of authors over the years, and the best thing seems to be that first just write a straight question with no branching. Just write the basic questions and then go back later and look at the question and say which choice might be a good place for a branching. And when you're deciding which choice might be a good place for branching, consider where students uniformly get confused about a particular area. Is it a term of law? Is it a deadline? Is it a code section? Where do they find confusion? And those might be great places for branching because you can explore the confusion in a branching question, set the student straight, and then move back to your core line of questions. Also, authors have suggested that you only author one branch at a time, and that's to avoid the problem that we call your head exploding, which is you're trying to keep track of two things at once. And we all think we're very smart because we are, yet when we're in class, very seldom do we run two simultaneous Socratic dialogues with one half of the room being one half of the Socratic dialogue and another half of the room. We're usually having one Socratic dialogue with a group of students, and then we finish that and we move on to a second one. So I would seriously suggest that you only follow one path of the branching at a time. And finally, think of continuity. And I've illustrated this here in this fun little drawing. Our little character, if you were to ask our character to walk down 2nd Street to get to the prize, and the character took the purple hashed mark, they would see certain things along their path. They would see a man who had dynamited his front yard, and they would see a car parked in front of a home, and they would see this Victorian painted lady style home. And then if you ask the same student to instead follow this orange dotted line and get to the prize by going down 1st Street, the student would see the graffiti car and the witches, and then also the cows. So if when you're at the prize, if you start asking the student about cows and witches, only some of the students, those who came down to the prize by 1st Street, are going to understand what you're talking about, and the students who came by the route of 2nd Street aren't going to know what you're talking about if you're talking about cars or witches. And of course that would be a problem with the prize being located on Elm Street that I'm going to, wait for it, call Nightmare on Elm Street. So that's why continuity is a real problem, and you need to follow each branch and make sure that the student knows as much as they need to and as you want them to know when you've taken them through one path of the lesson as through a second path. So let's write a simple lesson. It's going to be a very simple goal. We want to find out if somebody wants to get together with us Saturday night to do something. If they answer no, I'm going to ask them why not and try and convince them otherwise. If I'm unable to convince them to do anything with me Saturday night, of course, the lesson is going to end. If I am able to convince them to do something, then they're going to branch over here to a what do you want to do, dinner, movie sort of option. And once you've decided you want to go to dinner or a movie, the next questions are what movie and what food. So this is the simple flow chart that we're going to use in writing our lesson here. And what I did is created a CALI Author lesson, which I'm going to slide over here. And I wrote most of this lesson yesterday just so that I didn't have to spend time typing today. And I left a lot of gaps in it that we're going to work through together. So this is my basic lesson. I have it opened here in authoring mode. That's why you're seeing the hierarchy of pages here on the left, but you're also seeing the student view over here on the right. So I'm going to go through it just so we can see what shell we have. This is our introduction. So as I said, we're going to plan to get together on Saturday. I'm going to move forward here in the lesson. And I'm going to now follow our planning our Saturday night. I'm noticing that the pages are taking a little bit of time here to load, so I'm going to slow down. Would you like to get together with me on a Saturday night? So my choices are yes, please, and no, thank you. I'm just going to skip those for now. The next question is, what would you like to do? Here are choices: dinner, movie and dinner, or watch me clean air filters on my furnace. And then I'm going to move to the next page. What type of movie would I like to see? Move to our next page. What kind of food would you like? And that's the end of our lesson. Well, there are a lot of places where we can have some fun here and take students on some branching pages. So I'm going to go back to threshold. And would you like to get together with me for a movie on Saturday night? Well, the way it's set up right now is if students say no, thank you, they really don't have any response because I didn't add any responses. If they say yes, please, it's yes, great, let's figure out what to do. So let's go into authoring mode and add some things. So the choices are yes, please, and no, thank you. If we want to figure out what to do, what we probably want to do is branch the student. I'm going to click on this bar right here. There are three choices. There are three choices on most pages in CALI Author. You can show the feedback and return to the question. In other words, say, great, let's figure out what to do. And then the student closes the response box and they return to the page of, would you like to get together with me? Or you can show them the feedback and then branch directly to another page. Or you can show them no feedback at all and just move directly to another page. Well, I've got some feedback here, but I want to move the student from the feedback directly to another page. So I'm going to click my choice there. I'm going to expand my menu over here on the left. You'll see that there are more alphabetical pages listed than there are in the actual outline. All these alphabetical ones are ones that I pre-added earlier today just so we'd have some material to work with. But it's the same process. If you were going to add something, you would say show feedback and then branch to this page. And I would click this button here on the right, and I can add a new page, or I can add my page that I already created. And I'm going to just jump them to the next page in the series, which we're calling Question 1. I click OK. I'm going to save my book. All right. Then I'm going to click No Thank You, see what the response is here. For No Thank You, I think I want to jump the student immediately to a follow-up question. So I'm going to click this pull-down menu again, just branch them directly to the page. Now, recognize this is a large gray area. There's no room for feedback. Well, that's all right because I've already decided that I'm branching the students directly to another page. I'm not giving them any feedback. And I already have determined that I want to go to a page called Threshold Question, No Thank You. Just by way of a tip, when you are creating branching pages, try and give them names that you're going to be able to find later on. You can always change them before you publish the lesson for the student if you want to make them less obvious in terms of their answers. So right now the student is going to branch to a page that says Threshold Question, No Thank You. Well, let's go over to that page and see what that page is about. So I'm going to go into my student mode so I can preview this. I'm going to go to No Thank You. And the page says, I like animals, will you please reconsider? And here's a charming photo of me next to a cow dressed as a ballerina. And my choices are yes and no. And if I say no, I'm sorry to hear that as my response. If I say yes, great, let's do some planning. So I need to set some destinations for these pages. So I'm going to go to the response tabs. So for yes, the student wants to do something with me, I'm going to send them to the next page in my sequence, which I know to be movie, and I know that because, or I'm sorry, I know it to be question 1, because I just was asking the threshold question of what do you want to do. Let's see, question 1 here, I think that's it. Okay. And then for the no, they don't want to, let's see, I asked them, they don't want to do anything with me, so I'm just going to send them to the table of contents because they pretty much said they don't want to do anything with me and there's really no reason for them to continue with the lesson. All right, so I'm back at my threshold question. Would you like to get together with me? The students have said yes or no, and if they say yes, we have to figure out what to do. Notice this now is an arrow. It was an X before, so now they go to the next question. What would you like to do? So now we have a number of things that people could do with me on a Saturday night. And let's look at our choices. And then you can look at our responses. And for response A, what I want to do, this is the response when the person says, let's go to dinner. So for this response, I'm going to send the person directly to another page, and I'm going to send them to question 1, choice A, more than dinner. In choice B, I'm going to just sort of suggest, I was thinking of more than a movie. Would you change your mind? Oops, mind. One more, fix. There we go, mind. And for choice C, the student's reading my mind, so I'm going to reward that student by sending them directly after the feedback to the next page, which is where we're going to select our movie that we want to go to. And then choice D, finally, while it's fascinating to watch me clean air filters, I tell the student to please return to the question and make another choice. So let me show you what our mapper is looking like right now. For those of you who like iconic representations, subway maps, you're going to love this. This is our basic map of where we're going. These are the 4 questions that we've been working with. And let me rebuild this. And you see that now I've got some branches going on, depending on choices, depending on whether the student answers yes or no for a threshold, they go one direction or the other. Depending on what they answer for the movie, they go one direction or the other. So I'm going to go back to my pages now. So I've now answered this question of what would you like to do? And the question comes up, what type of movie would you like to see? And our 3 choices are Julia and Julia, anything followed by a Roman numeral, I love sequels, or the new documentary on cleaning furnace air filters. I'm a little fixated on cleaning air filters right now. All right, so these are my choices. And for responses, I'm agreeing, okay, I want to see that movie also. So we've agreed on a movie. So we can move on to our next question, which is show feedback, then branch to this page. And our next thing to discuss is what do we want to have for dinner. So I'll set this choice response back to going to dinner. Then for choice B, this choice was anything followed by a Roman numeral. Well, I really want to question somebody who wants to see a movie with a Roman numeral, so I want to follow up here. I'm just going to branch directly to another page, and I'm going to go to my page that I named Movie Choice B Roman numerals. Oh, I don't want to show any feedback. I want to just branch directly to that page. There we go. And then for choice C, I've already seen the air fairness documentary, so I'm trying to push the student to give me one of the other 2 choices. I'm going to save again. Let's see what this looks like right now. So if I press Julia and Julia, great, we're in agreement. We both want to see that movie. I move forward, and now I'm picking our restaurant types. Let me go back here a second so we can test our other choices. Anything followed by a Roman numeral. I love sequels. A sequel, so now we come to this question. No, I won't. Are you sure you won't reconsider? No, I won't reconsider. Julia and Julia is just a cooking show. I don't want to see it. Choice B is no, I won't consider. The Saw and Nightmare franchises are what make great cinema. And choice C is yes, I'm willing to discuss this and see something else. So I've set my choice C as being the correct one, and let's see here where we go for our responses. So if we're just going to have dinner then, we need to select our dinner. If we're going to discuss the Saw meeting again, or the Saw movie, just have dinner. And finally, if you want to see the same movie I do, and I've managed to convince you that Julia and Julia is the film to see, then we're back to deciding dinner. So actually, for all 3 of these choices, what I can do is just set the main page to go to the next page, and next page in the sequence. So all of these can go to where we select dinner. I don't have to put any of these pages to branching because all of them really can go to the same location. So let's see where we are here in our sequence. So now we've talked about our movie, what type of movie. I've convinced you pretty much by forcing you that Julia and Julia is the film to see. And now we're going to pick a restaurant. So I asked the student to pick what kind of food they might like. And my responses here, my responses here are basically I set all 6 of these food choices as ones I would be willing to eat. So for responses, this is amazing. I like all these foods also, so I'm going to let the student decide. So for picking which one they like, I'm going to show the feedback and then branch to the page called Dinner, the one that I like. Yeah, I'll let you decide. And then for the wrong one, I'm going to branch the student to a slightly different page. And here I'm going to branch them to, let me see if I may have branched these to the wrong one. My notes might be off here. Oh, you picked the, oh, this is, I think, yeah, you picked the place to eat. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, so we now have people going to you picking the place to eat or dinner, the one I like. I think I flipped these, but you get the idea. Where do we eat? And here students would write in answers. So if the student typed in Thai, we'll eat there. I put in a number of different choices. If the student picks Italian, I don't like garlic. And if the student picks cats, then I tell them that these are the choices I had selected. So here we've created a lesson with branching. Let's look at this in Mapper. I'm going to rebuild my Mapper tab. And you see that with a very simple dinner plan, I've turned this into a complicated flow chart of our threshold question. Would you like to get together? Yes, you want to. What would you like to do? You want to just go to a movie? Okay, what type of movie? Or if you just want to have dinner, I push you to having a movie with me, and then we have dinner, and then we decide which type of restaurant to go to, and then finally we decide to see see each other on Saturday. So quickly running through it, the lesson looks like this. Would you like to get together? Yes, please. Let's figure out what to do. I'd like to watch you clean the air filters. I'd like to go to a movie. I'd like to go to dinner. How about dinner and a movie? Okay, I've convinced you. I skipped the movie thing. I have should have, what would you like to do? This should have more than dinner. Well, I've got a bad branch in here I'd have to go back and fix, but I see we're running out of time. So what type of movie? I love sequels. Yes, I'm willing to discuss this. All right, so now we're discussing dinner. I like Chinese food. And I also have a problem there I would have to fix. So we're running out of time, though, but you can see that this is basically how you set up branching. All the problems that I've had here in the end are just because I have branches that don't quite point exactly where I want, so I'm trying to do this on the fly. What I'll do is I'll fix those broken places, and if you'd like a copy of our dinner planning CBK file, which is what we call a CALI Author book, just send me an email. So this is the end. The next webinar is next Friday using Facebooks. My colleague Austin is going to tell you some cool things CALI has done. We've got a number of webinars archived. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And that is...
Hey, Deb?
Yeah?
Quick question. Do you have like one lesson in mind that someone could go to that demonstrates branching that we've talked about today?
The best one to go to is the CALI Author demo lesson, which when you download CALI Author software, it comes with the download of the software, and it takes you through all the branching styles, and it takes you through branching questions. There are literally hundreds of faculty-written lessons that deal with branching, and if I give you one faculty name, I hurt all the other faculty that I work with, and no one lesson represents everything, so I'll just use our demo.
Okay, cool. And can I add one more thing? If you want to see Deb's previous 3 webinars on CALI Author, the best way to do that, and Deb, if you can pull up your Internet Explorer real quick or your browser, if you go to cali.org and under the Tools tab, CALI Author, pull that up. And if you scroll down, you'll see we have those archived down there at the bottom, so you won't have to go through every single episode and find where Deb's past webinars are. So those are right there. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Well, branching is a little confusing, so I won't take silence as being crystal clear, to be honest. But I would invite you to contact me if you have any questions. Email, you can find my email address at the end of this webinar or on the CALI website. And thanks very much for attending.
Thanks, Deb.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.